Let me just kickstart by thanking Chiffon and the MCHAM team for providing me and my fellow panelists a platform to discuss a topic very close to our hearts: women, technology, and the gender gap. No doubt this topic has seen years, if not decades, of debates, discussions, suggestions, and hopefully progress. When I searched woman, technology, gender gap online last night, 193 million results appeared. So what else is there to talk about, right? You may say, have we not discussed this topic to death? Not quite. Then I searched Malaysia, woman, technology, gender gap, which yielded an impressive 35.5 million results. Now, interestingly, the first article that came out when I did the search was written by an award-winning professor attached to a local university. Not your university, Dato' Yasmin. Anyway, so it started like this. It says, digital technology is a great means in modern society as we use it to perform almost everything. However, not everyone has the privilege to transform their lives through technology. And she went on to say, studies pertaining to the utilization of ICT among women and girls are not something new. Major research published in the last decade concluded that girls and women are at a disadvantage when it comes to learning through the aid of computer-assisted software. She then elaborated with some statistics and possible root causes, which I will not elaborate today because I'm sure my esteemed fellow panelists will have a view on that. Further on in the article, she said, we are in jeopardy of losing the talent of girls and women as contributors to science and technology. For in Malaysia, women make up only 35% of the technology workforce. Now, when you think about the article, it sounds like an old, long ago situation, doesn't it? You are wondering, was this article written in Y2K or was it written 10 years ago in 2012? But no, this article was written in March of last year. So even as recent as March of last year, only 35% of the technology workforce are women. Now, another interesting article about 8 months ago in December 2021, so very recent, Deloitte published a paper entitled Women in the Tech Industry Gaining Ground but Facing New Headwinds. In the report, Deloitte predicted that the large global technology firms on average will reach nearly, not yet, nearly 33% globally. Overall female representation in the workforce in 2022, only this year. So we are slightly ahead in Malaysia. And this is up more than 2 percentage points from 2019. Okay, furthermore, it said that moving the needle will be difficult, and even aggressive campaigns to recruit, hire, retain, and promote women have been found to work slowly. At the end of the report, Deloitte stated that beyond hiring more women, closing the gender gap will likely require solving the challenges of retention and equitable promotion. Research indicated that about half of the industry's female workers drop out of technology employment by mid-career, and women hold less than a quarter of the industry's senior leadership roles. According to a 2020 Deloitte report, gender bias is the obstacle preventing tech women from moving into leadership positions. So yes, we have a lot more work to do to help women leverage on the benefits that technology provides, be it to increase the percentage of women in the technology industry or to promote the use of technology to bridge the gender gap at work and at home in Malaysia. I look forward to a robust panel discussion, and I look forward to challenging questions from the audience. To kickstart the panel session, I'm happy to direct the first question to a woman technology trailblazer who needs no introduction, Dato' Yasmin Mahmud. So Yasmin, I would like to direct the first question to you, and I would also encourage the other panelists to jump in at the end to give your views. Please share your views, Dato', on the progress made over the last 3 to 5 years in increasing the participation of girls in STEM at institutions of higher learning. How well prepared are they for employment or entrepreneurship in the tech industry? Over to you, Dato.
All right, thank you, Chino, and thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure for me to be here. Many of you may not know, but Chino and I go a long way back. We're one of the pioneers in the tech industry. So, Chino, as for us, right, we have been, we were right there in the very beginning, and it's been what, almost close to what, 30 years or close to 30 years since we've started coming into the IT industry. And I know we have always been there pushing the women agenda in tech. And it is really disheartening, isn't it, when when to hear all those statistics when you read out. And I did the same thing. I was researching about this over the last couple of days, and I was on one, because I'm a very optimistic person. So on one hand, I would like to say that we have made a lot of progress, because the environment in which we grew up in when we first entered, it was so, I mean, we had a boss that would say things like, oh, we will squeeze the most out of these two girls until they get married, they get pregnant, then I cannot count on them anymore. At least we don't have those kind of rhetorics, yeah. But if you look at the statistics, and I'm happy to see the likes of Hannah Farhana coming in, and I wish there's more of you, Hannah. It's really disheartening for me that we don't see more of you, that I would notice you amongst. I shouldn't be noticing the fact that there is a woman leader in a tech multinational, right? But I still do notice, and I still feel so happy when I see it. Okay, so China has teed up to say that, okay, there is a lot of gender, and I don't want to go through what the issues are, because at 35% of women entering into the workforce, in the tech workforce, and then you will see it slipping across all of the industries, right? You see women entering the workforce, and generally, I think in Malaysia, there is still about 54%. If I'm not mistaken, the latest statistics states that the women entering generally in the workforce is about 50 plus percent. But we all know as it tapers upwards, then you will see the drop off. You'll see the leakage of women. So can you imagine in the tech industry at 35% entering? So that's why you only see one of Hannah, or you see so few of the likes of Hannah currently. So China's question directed to me is around more of what's happening upstream, which is in schools, right? So let me first share with you some statistics. So women, as we know, number of women in universities is pretty high. I mean, that is 62%, right? And that it continues. This trend started about 5 years ago and is continuing. There are more girls in university. Then I saw an interesting stat that came from Academy of Sciences that says that women in the sciences has reached 57%, which is interesting, because in the past, this was also a deficit. Then we start looking into engineering, engineering courses, that's about 37%, which is slightly lower than at the global level. At the global level, it's about or rather, engineering 37%, at the global level is 28%. Even globally, there's only 40% of women, of girls enrolled in ICT. And I cannot find the latest statistics around how many women are enrolled into computer science and ICT related. But if I look at the Harriet Watt's own statistics, we have 23% of girls in our engineering courses. In computer science, we have 33%, which I think is about the average of the Malaysian numbers as well, about 33%, 35%, perhaps tops 40%. But interestingly, when you look into actual science, we have a faculty of actual science and data sciences, that is 48%. So I now want to go into. I wouldn't want to go into the reasons of the reasons of why this is the case, but I want to go straight into three things that I think we can do to make to perhaps buck this trend and start moving upwards again. Because I think in the about 10 years ago, we saw the trend moving upwards. I think I was active in PCOM at that time, and we were quite encouraged by the upward trends. But I think over the years, in a way, it's very discouraging. It had actually come backwards. So here are some of the things that I think we need to do. Now, forget about policy, because if you ask about policy, there's enough policies. There's policies coming out of our ears, to try and close this gender gap. There's policy, and in fact, I think the current policy within MOE, within MOE, is perhaps giving a bit of a disadvantage, because in MOE they have this UPU, right? This central distribution of what courses you want to take, and there could be an element of force feeding certain people into courses which they may not be interested in. So it's not about an organic a demand for these courses. But going back to what I was going to suggest, which is the three intervention points, I would say. The first one is that when we position technology amongst girls as technology, then all those stereotyping and the cultural biasness comes into play. But what I've noticed is that when we changed it to problem solving, that technology is only a means to solve a problem, then you have a shift in the thinking of the the thinking from the girls. And I had this as a first-hand experience, because when I was in MDEC, we actually introduced a program called My Digital Maker Movement. And it was in collaboration with Ministry of Education to actually embed technology skills and mindset, like coding, like design thinking, into the actual curriculum within the schools. And we find that when it comes to doing project and so on, boys were doing things and were pivoting towards things that are cool. So technology to them is about creating cool stuff. Whereas the girls, it was so apparent, they were using technology and they were pivoting more towards the problems they were trying to solve. So I think if we were to then embed within universities, within the schools, about how technology, it's not about technology for the sake of technology. I mean, I have a passion for technology, but I have more passion for what technology can do to make a difference in people's lives. So I think if we make this shift, and we can do it through curriculum, through project work, industry can come in, the link between technology and ESG and the SDG goals, for instance, I think this will make a difference. So I think that's the first proposition that I want to make. The second one is that, there is a lot of women out there who would be interested to upskill and reskill. But there is always that kind of resistance because of the stereotyping and the gender bias and so on. So the path towards them getting into technology is somewhat reduced because of the gig economy and also because of the online courses. In fact, I came across the statistics, which is encouraging, that says that Coursera have seen their uptake increased to 36% from 29% a few years ago. So I think women are now being, they are curious about it. They know it's important. They know it is a tool that a skill that they have to acquire. In the past, it was very much driven by location. So you got to go in there and then you start saying, oh my God, there's so many men, there's so few women. And then, they have all this kind of inertia and resistance to it. But now onboarding to this new skill is made a lot easier. And coupled with the fact that the gig economy is really going to take off. And any organization that doesn't have a gig workforce strategy, I think will be facing the repercussions in the next few years. So I think with these two things, this is where I think we should put in more energy around it. I think from a government perspective, perhaps HRDF funds can then be utilized for girls, a specific kind of a program that can be funded from scholarships, can be funded from HRDF to promote this movement, which will happen. I strongly believe that this trend will continue. And the last thing I want to just say is the power of role models. When it comes to, we cannot underestimate the power of role models. I remember my role models when I was young, and I was, who are the people that I went in, I saw, and I said, oh wow, if she can do it, why can't I do it? Or I want to be like her. So I have got so many of these kind of people that have influenced me across in my life. So I this is what I call the Vivi Yusof impact. You know, when Vivi Yusof came on with her fashion ballet, then you start seeing all these girls coming up to embrace social commerce and e-commerce. Even in universities right now, you'll be surprised. You will have people girls in universities that are already starting their own online business, right? So I think you cannot underestimate the impact of role models. So perhaps I was thinking maybe AmCham and PCOM could sponsor an award category, perhaps that is called the Rising Women in Tech category. I think we cannot underestimate what impact this would have. Okay, China. So I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very, very interesting points. I mean, I will not summarize because we've just said it so well. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'm not going to ask the other two speakers to comment just yet because you know I'm trying to manage the time a little bit. Okay, let me just go straight to Hannah. So Hannah, who as the head of Cisco, you as the head of Cisco, no pressure, will fit very well into the role model that Yasmin spoke about just now. And certainly as the head of Cisco Malaysia, you represent the progress of women in IT. So Hannah, please share with us how an NMC like Cisco promotes women development in Malaysia, and if there are special skills or technology adoption programs in place for women in the workplace. In your view, are more women progressing to C-suite levels in IT, for example, in the role of CTO, CIO, or like yourself, CEO of IT companies, or has the trend reversed in the last 2 to 3 years? So over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Chania. So thank you everyone, and thank you AmCham for the forum. Dr. Yasmin, I really love kind of all your insights, and I totally concur actually, because I spend quite a bit of time with university students from a volunteering perspective, but they're also my customers. So I sit with like the VCs or the deputy VCs to understand kind of what the students dislike, right, in terms of the courses. So for example, computer science courses have kind of dipped in the recent conversations as UKM and UITM. They've seen a dip in interest because people are more interested, like the VV so in fact, like on entrepreneurship, on, you know, kind of doing their own thing, gig economy, right, rather than not the 9 to 5 anymore. And that's kind of what they said. And the students not aggressively looking for jobs on the final year, right? So kind of how do we generate that interest, the role modeling, saying like, hey, you're a woman, you can do a lot of really fun and interesting things in the tech industry. And it can be very varied, right? It's not like you putting a cable and a switch type job, right? It's like there's a lot of varied roles. It could be sales, it could be channel, it could be many, many fun roles. So how can we promote that? It's probably like a question I have for myself. But within Cisco itself, and I've actually been in Cisco for 3 years. And previously I was in management consulting, so with Bain and Company, and it was to me a big shift because in Cisco the amount of women in leadership was very high. So for example, country leaders, we have 6 countries in ASEAN, 4 country leaders are women. And then my boss is a woman, which is the first time ever in my career. so I myself was like, oh, I have a woman boss, like finally, right? So in a sense, I think if I talk about Cisco in itself, I think they've done a lot of things to kind of really proactively kind of promote women in technology, but also then up to leadership. And we see the same thing. We have a good, almost 50-50 at the entry level, but when we go up, it gets less. So how do we proactively manage that? And Cisco's executive leadership, so under our CEO, Chuck Robbins, it's also almost like 45% female. So again, as I came in 3 years ago, I found that like an amazing thing. So a lot of role models that I can see, okay, how do they operate? What's their leadership style? But in kind of Malaysia itself, we have this, and we've done this. It's a global CSR Cisco program. It's called Networking Academy. So we've been around. The Networking Academy of Cisco has been around for almost 10 years, where we train students on the networking certifications, so the CCIE, CCNA, and even cybersecurity kind of certifications that make them kind of employment ready. We've trained almost, this year we have 20,000 students now, but we've trained almost 100,000+ students. And around 40% are female. And so this is our kind of the way we, kind of what you mentioned at Yasmin, upstream. How do we impact upstream from a skill set perspective? We need to equip them. But I think there's another layer that we need to do. How do we make it sexy, make it cool? Envision the career that you can have with it. Not just, I'm doing all these skill sets, seems, very technical or what, but what can you do with it, I think is key. So for us, I think that is still kind of important element for us to bring women into the workforce, into tech. And for, I think, 2 or 3 universities, it's incorporated within their curricula, meaning like, so in UITM, if you want a computer science degree, you have to do the Cisco CCIE or CCNE course. So it depends on the university. For some, it's an elective kind of program. So I think that's one in the upstream part. Then as they come into the workforce, and I've seen this and been part of some of the programs, we actually have, they call it Jump and Dare. So there's 2 types. One is for like early career women, and the other one is for like more hypo mid-career women. They have programs that your manager can sign you up, and they have kind of, I think it's a week long across like a few times in the year. So then, so for example, now I have 2 kind of my team members doing that. So it's like a training, leadership training for women, and trying to get us to understand what do we want, what's our career aspirations, what is holding us back. So those, I really like that the fact that we have a specific, program that we can sign up our team for high potential women. So I think that's one. And then I think overall, I think for me personally, as someone who got here, and I didn't actually imagine that I could get here, I think the role of mentorship and sponsorship in a company cannot be downplayed, right? And it most of the time it's male, right? Because the people above you are mainly male. So for me, how I got here is because I had strong male mentors and sponsors. So how can we get everyone in the company community to lift these women up, and get them to try to put their hand up even though they're afraid? So I think that's like a side note for me, not so much what Cisco does, but just I think what every company should do. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. I think that is exactly what I think both Yasmin and I, we went through, whatever we have gone through. And exactly what you said, about we want women to put their hands up. So, in this session, we are not exploring that, why women are not growing with the company.
Yeah.
Certainly the what I call the private victory, right? The woman taking the initiative and saying, I want the job, versus being persuaded to take the job. That says a lot about, readiness, confidence, a lot of things that we can talk about. Thank you so much, both Dato' Yasmin and Hannah, that I think you really pinpoint to the fact that technology for the sake of technology will not excite women. Technology because it makes a difference, and because it's cool, and it's problem solving. These are the reasons why it's kind of paraphrasing what technology is. During the time when Dato' Yasmin and I started, technology was so cool, right? We are both computer science graduates, by the way, and we started, it was so cool. But today, what it has become very sexy and very cool. And I think, given that coolness, kind of segues beautifully into Eric's question. So Eric, you are the cool guy. You are the cool guy from the tech startup world. So we want to hear from you. How has the technopreneurial landscape changed over the years for women, not for men? You have to represent a woman.
Absolutely.
And what do you recommend to encourage more women to participate in this space?
Sure. Thanks, Chanyo, and the other 2 speakers. Maybe just to give a context for myself, I was previously at Facebook as a public policy manager for Malaysia and Brunei for about 4.5 years. Then I subsequently left in December, and I've continued an initiative that I've been working on with the various state governments and also federal government. It's called Malaysian Digital Districts, we haven't launched yet. We're actually going to launch in April. It's essentially a network of 6 tech ecosystems across Malaysia: KL, Penang, Johor, Sabah, Sarawak, and Labuan. And the reason why is that we noticed that each city had their own tech ecosystems and their own communities, and they were all pretty siloed. So what we try to do is to tie everyone together in order to create economic opportunities, and also to tackle the fundamental issue of how do we turn Malaysia into a high income nation. And it's really because of slow productivity growth caused by structural issues in the labor market, which includes low female labor force participation rate. And so what we're looking to do to tackle that is really two key approaches. One is to create high-skilled and high-income digital jobs, including for women across Malaysia, not just in Klang Valley or KL, and that's really important. And also to upskill the local workforce and match them to those jobs, because the opportunity is really in micro-credentials. And what we see coming from the past 2 years of COVID is that there are three key trends that we're seeing across the world. One is decentralization, which is remote work. You can work from anywhere. You don't have to be in KL. You don't have to be in Singapore to get work done. You can be from anywhere, and that creates opportunities and accessibility for women across Malaysia, not just in the urban areas. Second is dematerialization. So that's where consumers and companies are more willing to pay for good digital goods and services. So it then changes conversation beyond e-commerce, not just physical products and services, but also digital. And third is disintermediation, whereby now we can sell directly to customers around the world because it's digital, and it's also different from e-commerce, where you don't have to deal with manufacturing, production, warehousing, logistics, etc. We can deliver services around the world. And that also opens up the opportunity to leverage on currency arbitrage. So if we deliver services from Malaysia to a client in US, to a client in Europe, client in Singapore, we're doing the same amount of work, whether we do it in Malaysia or for a Malaysian client or foreign client, but we can charge in USD and foreign currency. So that also creates economic opportunities for Malaysians across the country. So back to your question, China, which is essentially how has a tech landscape changed over the years for women? What we're seeing now is that, so we talk about entrepreneurship or techpreneurship. There's the startup type, whereby they have to create their own app, their own product, or own service, and that is a bit tricky because then you need to go through your accelerators, you gotta get seed funding, etc., and grow, and that requires a different ecosystem itself because it has a high failure rate if it doesn't have any proprietary technology and it's not tested. So that's itself. Second is also perhaps in the e-commerce space, where we see that with various programs through MDEC, including e-Usahawan, whereby they then train the women entrepreneurs to adopt e-commerce platforms such as Shopee, Lazada, Facebook, etc., to bring their businesses online and reach customers around the world. A third bucket that we're starting to see is that actually, perhaps on the digital service provider side, whereby women and individuals can set up their own digital marketing firm, their own software development firm, their own creative design firm, and they can deliver services around the world. And we're seeing a few of those at a very small scale in the different cities, and they're kind of hidden in random places, but they're serving clients from, say, Taiwan and Hong Kong, and they do very good quality work, and they're charging in US dollars. Then we're starting to see these trends, and we're trying to then consolidate them into these different ecosystems, onboard them to our platform, and really market them to grow. And one more opportunity, China, is really remote work and digital jobs. So what we're also trying to do is to essentially get jobs from Singapore. We're speaking to a few Singapore clients to then connect those jobs, because they're outsourcing all these developer jobs at scale. It's like 1,000 of them to Vietnam. If we can leverage on that, we connect them to jobs in Malaysia, and then we also upskill the talent across the 5 cities, whereby we're also developing different programs for the different communities in the 5 cities to then upskill them, also getting funding from state government to then get them to do micro-credentials. And really the amazing thing about micro-credentials is that you no longer need to have a 3-year degree to get a job. You just need to do a 4-month or plus course. It's really based on your portfolio and the projects that you've done to demonstrate your aptitude and capability. So we're very much focused on that. And that also opens up opportunities for women in rural areas, underserved community B40, who have not had the opportunity to go university, but we want to provide it for them such that they can be upskilled and be connected to a remote job. And just to give context as to what type of jobs we're looking at, it's really software development type of jobs. And in Singapore, they've increased the employment pass rate to 5,000 Sing. And what we've done a bit of survey with from Johor and Singapore and found that Malaysians in Singapore are willing to relocate back and take up 30% pay cut. And also Singapore employers are willing to hire directly from Malaysia. And what is the rate? It's approximately, if they hire directly, it's about 7,400 or 7,500 ringgit, which is 2,500 Sing, which is like below market rate. So essentially, for one EP in Singapore, you can hire 2 Malaysians remotely, and they could be just as competent. So that creates the opportunity whereby the value proposition to Singapore and other countries is you can double your workforce, outsource it to Malaysia, and on our end, we connect them to entrepreneurs, digital workers across the country, including women. And that, I think, creates accessibility and economic opportunities for them.
Well, that sounds so encouraging, isn't it? And I'm sure I can see Dr. Yasmin's eyes sparkling because I know you have this passion, to drive a lot more. We talk about, remember the digital, I can't remember what we said, but it was the economic, how much digital is represented in the economy. Remember we spoke about that. MDEC, when MDEC changed from Malaysian, no, I know when you were there, it became Malaysian Digital Economic Corporation. Before that was a Malaysian Development, I think, right?
It was Multimedia Development Corporation.
Yeah. So I know it changed. So you can see.
Which didn't mean anything now. So that's why it changed.
No, but it's really encouraging because, when we started, we said that a woman is only represents 35% of the technology workforce. I'm wondering whether the data include, entrepreneurs like that, or you call them as techpreneurs. So I'm just wondering, do we have data actually to show, I know you've just started, but do we have data, Eric, to show how many percent of women, or even absolute numbers, how many thousands or, tens of thousands, hopefully, of women are in this space? Do we have data of that nature?
No, we don't currently have data, but we are building up a database to track all the
maybe I
digital
can add in that because I think, Eric, oh my God, I think it's amazing work that you are doing. I think we've met before, or we were speaking when I was with MDEC, right?
Yes.
And you were with Facebook at that time. So it's good to see you. And my God, you're doing such wonderful stuff right now. But China, when what Eric mentioned was this program which was launched in 2016. This was something which we did together. It was with this amazing team in MDEC, headed by Dr. Sumitra. She's still there, and she's she's now championing, I think, the My Digital Maker movement. These are there are two movements that I felt that we began at that time, which was the My Digital Maker movement, which I think is going to make an impact in the next few years. But the other one is this e-Usahawan program. Now the statistics that China you're asking is that 75% were women, by the way.
Wow.
In this e-Usahawan program, where we empowered women, empowered everybody, and it included embedding the social commerce, e-commerce curriculum into vocational schools, which we co-developed with the likes of Facebook and with the practitioners, right? So that created such momentum. More than I think when I left, it was 300,000 people who were onboarded, and we had millionaires that came out of it, but 75% were women, China.
Wow.
75%. Yeah,
that is certainly so encouraging. And it appears to me, okay, so what is happening now is, appears to me that the Hannah will be rather lonely, because appears to me that the woman's preference for participating in tech may not be joining, multinationals or GLCs or, PLCs. Appears to me that this whole niche of creating value and to use your words, Eric, really from a, you use the word, let me see, did I get the right word? Well, I mean, you talk about micro credentials, but in my mind, when you spoke, it kind of like tells me that woman wants to be their own boss. They say, yes, I will be a techpreneur, but on my own terms. I'm not going to join a big multinational, fight my way up, trying to, do maybe things that are not natural to me or I'm not interested in. I mean, I don't want to go there, but we come from corporations, all four of us actually, because I came from IBM. Eric, you're from Facebook. Yasmin went to multiple multinationals, and then Hannah,
Only
of course,
three.
okay. Well, sounds like, I mean, I only had one. I had
Compared
two,
to
actually.
you.
Yeah, I had two. So Hannah in Cisco, and of course Bain and all that. So we come very much from a corporate background, and maybe we are barking the wrong tree when we say that we want women to bridge the gender gap in the workplace. Maybe the workplace is home. This whole decentralization, I can work from home, and I can be technology, I can benefit from technology. I choose to work from home. 75%, that's high numbers. So I think, at this juncture, I think it'll be quite interesting for us to, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to skew the conversation a bit away from the original topic. That is, how do we bridge the gender gap? Sorry, the topic is how do you use technology to close the gender gap at work? Maybe we are barking up the wrong tree. Maybe that is not the question. The question is, in whatever shape and form, how do we get women to benefit from the technology explosion that's happening today, right? So maybe I'm going to open. By the way, I'm going to open the session to questions from the floor first, and if we don't get much response, then we can have we can continue our conversation. It's exciting, very exciting. Okay, so Priscilla, do we have any questions that has been posted online, or if anyone wants to speak up? Priscilla, you there?
No, at the moment we do not have any questions, but I will let you know when we do.
Okay, okay. So we are on this very interesting conversation. So maybe what I would like to suggest is that for each of the speakers to put forward your thoughts on this entire, kind of a different topic. How do we get women to leverage on this whole technology explosion as a result of the post-pandemic, right? Things have changed over the last 2 years. The way people buy, the way people live, the way people work. Even the way people educate their children have changed. So if I could just open this up to the panel to, give us your views, how do you think this whole change, how it's going to affect um, the way women leverage? I mean, Eric has given us some examples, but, maybe something a bit more, I would say, some examples of your experiences. Anyone wants to go first?
I think Hannah is speaking, but you're on mute, Hannah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. I can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. So maybe I share a bit of maybe some real examples. I have a 10-month-old baby, and I actually also built my team, especially my previous team, the strategy team, had a lot of women with either mid-career but with kids. And a lot of them wanted to stop, wanted to give up. And I think what the beauty of technology is that as a woman, now with the flexibility, the work from home, remote work, you can have, you can be ambitious, you can have a fulfilling career, but you can still be there for your family. In the past, it wasn't flexible, right? You can't work from home a lot, or even if you wanted, it would be an exception. Now it's the norm. And I would say, that to me is the most like the best thing ever for women, right? I can do my work. For example, in my strategy role, I did a Singapore role out of Malaysia. I convinced them to give me the role in KL because I said, I can still do the work. I'll travel. Okay, pre-COVID, every 2 weeks, I would travel a few days. And I personally enjoyed it because it gave me time. But it was just a nice balance because I had a fulfilling career, but I could also be home. And now as I move up and I'm trying to get these women to envision that life for them where you can have flexibility, you can dream, you can go to the top or progress to the top, but actually be there for your family. You don't have to take a step back. You can carve out that flexible career and grow personally and professionally. So I think to me, that's the one amazing thing about technology, that we are in this moment of time. Yeah.
I can totally relate to you, Hannah. I mean, I left the workforce twice to take care of my family. So, so I can really appreciate what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah.
before the other panelists speak, we have got questions now. And maybe I address the questions first. Well, Yasmin, do you have something burning that you want to say first?
No, I just wanted to just add on to what Hannah was saying, because post COVID, right? I mean, well, we're still in the middle of it, but there was this thing called the Great Resignation.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
think it's the
Yes.
Great Resignation. I think it's more of the Great Migration towards what Hannah was talking about, and to what Eric's trying to do, and what I mentioned just now,
Yeah.
which is moving to a gig economy. I call it a gig economy, but it's really about moving on to an environment where you have the flexibility. You look at jobs not as a career, but you look at jobs and jobs and jobs, and you choose what is convenient to you, what integrates with your work and life integration, and also what
Yes.
you really want to do. Because if you come in and become an employee, right, you just have to, you have to do what people say you need to do. You have your job scope, all that, but you want to define your own job scope. So I think that's why, what Eric is doing, is, I think we call it this, platform, jobs that are on platforms. And if you combine that, jobs on the platform, which is the demand, and if the supply comes from the micro credentials that is also on the platform, you mesh it two together, and this will be a massive opportunity for women. This could be an inflection point for women, for women to capitalize on this explosion of technology that China was referring to.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I left the workforce in 2010. Now it's 2022, 12 years. So much has changed. Yeah,
It's
I left the
12
workforce in
years.
2010. 12 years. That's a
Oh
long
my
time.
God.
Yeah, I first left the workforce in 2012, I remember. 2010, sorry. Okay, let me just bring this question up, right? So we have a question from Jane Quay from Kindrel. So she said, you said it right. Maybe we are barking on the wrong tree. So what her question is, how do we get women exposed on tech and be sexy about it? So I don't know. I mean, this is a very difficult question, but she directed the question to Eric. So Eric, how do you make tech sexy for women?
Yeah, so I
Go,
would say,
Eric.
yeah, three angles there. Because previously when I was at Facebook, I also had to do a lot of programs, and it's not easy to do programs because impactful programs had to qualify, because it's easier to get people to turn up for a training event. You just provide free food, but it's harder to measure impact. So what we mean by impact? So you've got inputs, so your time, resources, manpower, outputs, training activities, maybe even and certification. Outcomes, how many people have actually increased their skills. So not just attend and then forget everything. You need to actually increase. How do we measure that? You have to take certification and exams. And once you've got outputs, the outcomes outcomes, that means that they're already certified. And impact, have they actually increased their revenue if they're running a business? Have they actually secured a higher paying employment? So actually, when you do program design, it's a lot of programs kind of just stop at outputs, number of people trained, which is easier. The tough part is actually getting outcomes, how to actually drag people, get them to prepare, study, schedule an online exam, take it and pass. And that requires a lot more effort. And so when I was at Facebook, we had to actually do it for a year and sort of test it out. There's a whole funnel. When we see a drop off, we have to investigate what's going on there. Is it because people aren't aware of it, or they're not aware that they have to take exam? If so, are they prepared for exam, etc. So it gets quite technical and granular. I'll save you all the details. But essentially, yeah, that's the level that we have to go to in order to ensure it works. And therefore, it boils down to program design, which has to build in impact measurement mechanisms all the way through, and monitoring and tweak it along the way. Because essentially, the way I see it is that we're dealing with humans, and we have to see human behavior and how do they react to certain interventions, what their thought process is, and how do we tweak it. Some of the key things we saw was like we saw that work includes like peer pressure. If everyone has the different groups, community groups, and they show that they've passed the exam, they've gotten some swags, then the others feel a little like left out of FOMO, then they want to get the swags. Things like that actually do help to motivate them. So that's one program design. Second part is accessibility. So these courses, they do come with a bit of cost, regardless of any coding course across the country, unless it's sponsored by corporate. And also, like, we want to help to maybe make it accessible, partly fund it, but not completely fund it, such that they still have skin in the game, that they are motivated to still complete the course and emerge out of it with a certification. And so when we think about funding, how does it affect the incentives for them to do it, to sign up for a course and complete it, and also ensure that it's at the same time accessible for them. Thirdly is marketing. Then I think the part about increasing exposure is really, we can run our marketing campaigns through social media, through the news, etc., and really drive awareness, both at the national level and also on the ground level.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So Eric has given us a comprehensive, well, almost step-by-step way on the how-to. But Eric, you have not answered the question about the sexiness. Okay, so all the practical aspect of, I understand all the practical aspect, but I think what I am trying to guess from the question is, there is something that is very exciting that's happening today, which is the front-end web designing.
Yes.
So I find that a lot of women, at least my experience, has been very attracted to front-end web designing because it's really about the client experience, right? The front end. So, but what you're saying is that the front end is only one part of the equation. In addition to the front end, there's all these other things that you got to do, from scaling up, to marketing. And you mentioned one other thing, I forgot the second one.
Ensuring accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility. And then you talk about funding. So those are not so sexy, I guess, but it's required. So it is a step-by-step process. There are a lot of things you got to do before, you can become a fashion valet, right? Because a fashion valet is the end product. So I hope I answered that question, Jane. There's another question. So maybe just quickly bring up the question since we are running out of time. So the other question is that okay, I have a question from Joanne. I like the turn in conversation. That is, we are not always about closing gender gap, but how to be role models. So he says, example, the panelists here, what to open up options to women to utilize tech for financial freedom, such as gig economy. So I guess Joanne's question is, how do you become a role model? Let's say, for example, for herself, how do you become a role model? And, and how do you open options to women to utilize tech for financial freedom, such as gig? So how do you, I mean, I think this part, maybe I won't ask Eric to answer because he will give us a step-by-step process, which he has given us. Maybe I put a softer touch to it. So maybe I ask the other two ladies, okay? So if someone wants to be in this space, right? For example, if I want to create something for financial freedom, obviously, maybe I can stay at home, take care of my kids or whatever. How do I go about doing it? Not from the practical aspect so much, but I guess more from if I could say more from a visioning, or maybe, how do you even start? Where do you even start? So maybe that's where the question is coming from. Where do you even start? Maybe at the beginning, the mindset change. Maybe it's a mindset question versus the step-by-step. So maybe Dr. Jasmine, you want to go for first?
No, I mean, I like what you said, China, which is, maybe we are barking up the wrong tree. Although I think we still need to continue to bark because, having representation across the board is what diversity is all about, right? Because if nobody wants to join the likes of Cisco and the likes of IBMs, then it's also no good because there is no representation in these big tech companies. Right, so I think we still have to continue barking the wrong tree. I mean, that tree has to be barked. But I think
different tree, not wrong tree. Maybe different tree.
Yeah, that tree is a big tree. It's too big a tree for us to ignore. So I think we got to continue barking. So sorry, Hannah, you have to really continue doing that, and we will support you as the veterans. We'll support you. But I think the point is that making here is that the opportunity of making an impact is so varied. And how do women really capitalize on things, not only for financial freedom, but, a big topic which I am so passionate about is also about the power of the AI, the algorithm economy, and the biasness that will be embedded there that can hurt women. So, algorithms are built by data, right? And if you look at past data, that's already rife with biasness, then the biasness is going to continue. So, I mean, the transparency algorithm, but okay, the question is more about how do women understand this? And I think this is where we as an industry have to first raise the awareness level, right? And the women also, you need to go in there. There's enough. You just do Googling, right? You can come up with millions of these. Today, we already spoke about the fact that e-commerce, social commerce, there are so many women that's already benefited from this. I think there's enough programs coming from both the government, from the private sector. You just have to go and find that out. So that's the first step. We spoke about, you know, the gig economy, what Eric is doing. You know, I mean, go and find out what Eric is trying to do. Get into this gig economy and you know, micro credential the hell out of yourself. You know, I mean, go ahead. There's so many things out there, you know, that can help you to do that. And lastly, I think the role models. I think that's an excellent question. I mean, a lot of role models don't think that they or we are role models. You know, I never consider myself as a role model because there's such a big responsibility. But I think just showcasing what they have gone through, the how we have fallen, we make so many mistakes too, you know, but how we have overcome that. If we can, I think it'd be good. Maybe Eric, you know, since you are in this, and if you want support from veterans like us, you know, but we would love to. But maybe you should start looking into this, you know, these role models, just like Vivi Yusof and Siti Nurhaliza and all that became such fantastic role models in that space and has created a momentum. Your gig economy, you know, maybe you can look at some, because I know when at MDEC, when I started this program called eRezeki and GLOW, I think it was called Global Online Workforce, because that was the term that what you're trying to do. There are so many women that went on board and able to earn in Sing dollars or US dollars.
Great.
So, you know, and they can choose how many hours they want to work, and they can choose, and some of them actually became businesses. You know, they created their own, they recruited people and bidded for projects on this, what was some of these platforms, Eric? Freelance.com and all those things, right? So there is a lot of opportunities out there. You know, I think ladies just go, you know, there's something called Mr. Google. Just go out there and search it. There's agencies like MDEC who's doing a great job at these things, and also people like Eric, the private sector energy. So that's my advice. It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. You want to add anything, Hannah? Anything to add?
You still on mute, Hannah?
I still okay now. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I look at it as much like I mean, I have this view of Instagram, right? The young women entrepreneurs selling makeup, cookies, or tudong. I mean, some of them make it big, right? And this is what, when I speak to my mentees from the universities, they aspire for this, and it is a good thing. But we need to expand this aspiration, and I look at it as from a skill set, technology. Like you can be, you know, if you know coding, you can be a developer, software developer, and do it freelance. There's so many other things, not just selling stuff, right? How do you get that those role models come out as well? I think that's the thing in my mind, right? Like, because we need that skill set, this micro credentials thing, but they don't come out as some, ooh, sexy, I want to do that, right? I want to go get that certification. How do we expand that kind of set of people to say, oh, you know, they earn good money, they are flexible, they can be a mom. Yeah, expanding that.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's really exciting. You know, when my daughter was in university, she studied in UK. She loves drawing. You know, she sold the drawings she sold. She drew, right? And these are prints. These are, you know, this is what you call the NFTs now.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So she actually she draw and she actually sell the
wow,
property, like you can call it, the intellectual property, the concept, the right to use her pictures online.
exactly.
And she earned pounds.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, so exciting, huh? Yeah, pounds, in pounds. She earns in pounds. And even now, when she's back in Malaysia, she has got some companies in the US calling her and say, can you draw book covers for me? And they pay her in US dollars. Actually, this is just part time for her. But I mean,
examples of that.
The limit is there's no limit, you know. It's just endless, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to, because we have about 4 more minutes. I'm going to ask each panelist to kind of give some last words, you know, words of advice to women who are listening on this channel, on this session. So maybe I start with Eric, since you were the kind of the last speaker. So starting with Eric, what are some words of advice for women listening in?
Yeah, I think I really like the point on role models that Dr. Yasmin made, because yes, there's the programs and all that, but I think the softer element of actually inspiring people is also really important. And also, I think there's a need for localized role models. So yes, we've got City, we've got like Vivi, Nilofa, but those are like really big. We need also people who are like from Sabah and have women who have made it. One example is a lady called Faizra Rizalman, the founder of Rambutan Code Academy, the first coding school in Sabah. And I think that's a great way to show, even from your local communities, you know, there are women who have made it, who have initiated something in tech, and they're leading the way. They may not be all the way at national level, but that's just one step. And that even for people who are outside of KL or Klang Valley, they may already feel, okay, that's at least attainable, not too far off, not a superstar kind of moonshot kind of thing, but at least that will inspire me to take the first step. I think we need to surface a lot more of these role models and case studies and success stories from across Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. So Hannah, any last words for the ladies listening in? Oh, for all the ladies and guys listening in. Let's not leave the guys out.
And
Okay,
yeah, for all the women and men, I think it's at the end of the day, sometimes there's two parts. We either wait for things to happen, for policies, programs to happen, or we kind of carve our own path. We don't see anyone that looks like us, but it's okay. We say we want to do it, and we find out how we do it. I think it's important to have both, right? So I think, yeah, my call is just, you have women with you, working above you, under you. How can you always support them, lift them up, get them to do the things that they're afraid of, and just try, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
That's my
thanks.
last word.
Good messages. Okay, Jasmine, Dato' Yasmin, share with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to and in the context of this panel discussion, right? So I technology is sexy. Even if you don't think that, the bits but I personally love technology. I'm a tech geek, I fell in love with technology the moment I saw these little kids, these little pictures on TV, when I was 5 years old, right? And but even if you don't think that's sexy, then that's fine. But surely you must think that things where you can make pounds using NFTs, that you can become you can become an accountant that serves UK in US dollars. The fact that you can do e-commerce, the fact that AI is going to be able to change how we do farming for food security. I mean, those are sexy stuff, right? So I guess that this is what I want to leave with women. Technology is going to impact so much in terms of your social, economic position. Now you got to get engaged. We've got to get engaged in this. Otherwise, it's going to impact our children, our children's children, right? So we need to lean in, to say in the famous words of Sheryl Sandberg, right? You got to lean in and sit on the table. And if nobody wants to give you a seat, bring your own chair. Right.
Or bring your own table.
bring your own table.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the session. I hope you all enjoyed the session as much. I just want to go back to the opening when I started by saying that this professor said that digital technology is a great means in modern society as we use it to perform almost everything. She said that, however, not everyone has the privilege to transform their lives through technology, but I think today's session has given us a different perspective, that everyone actually has the privilege to transform their lives through technology. And it is, all the things that Eric spoke about, the opportunities, what Hannah said about not waiting, and what Dr. Yasmin said, all the things that MTech has done, and, really it's a mindset thing, putting up your hands and saying, I want to do it. So I'd like to conclude by saying that everyone has the privilege to transform their lives through technology. So put your hands up. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself, and I hope that our audience have also benefited from this discussion. So back to you, Priscilla.
Thank you, Chai Neo. Thank you once again to all our panelists for this session as well as the one earlier. We hope you were able to gain some useful insights from both the discussions. As we have now come to the end of our 3-day Women's Week program, I would like to pass the floor over to our CEO, Siobhan Das, to say a few words. Siobhan, please.
Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Oh no, we're still in morning. I was just listening to the four of you speak on this, and I'm so inspired. It's so enlightening to have such a lively conversation. So thank you to all of you for being part of this. And Chainyo, great to see you again. Dr. Yasmin, fantastic to hear all your inspirational words. Hannah, great to have you part of the AmCham family. And of course, Eric, inspiring. I mean, when Eric told me what he was doing, I just said, you're absolute natural for this panel. And so really, this was one of the liveliest conversations. And I would like to take that energy and encourage all of us to take it into our environments, whether it's home or at the workplace. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences, your thoughts, and being inspiring. The conversations about breaking the bias, we need to equip ourselves, not just with the tools and micro-credentials and everything else, but we need to lift the veil. And we're in a very, very, very unique environment right now where COVID and our environment has changed such that the veil has been lifted for us. So we really needed to embrace that change and help not just change our own biases and perspectives, but to think about and have buddies to help us make sure that we're not staying in our little rut and, lift us up to see what's on the outside and maybe find a new track or inspire people to go down that track, and to find different trees to bark up, because I tell you, there are many out there. So we need to be challenging ourselves and other people. And just, a few days ago, I came across an interesting post that made me ponder about perspectives and where we are on this journey. So it was on Instagram, and are we already on the journey in breaking the biases? Or are we at the beginning of this journey? So if you are, imagine a CEO, question ourselves, is it a man? If you imagine a feminist, is it a woman? Imagine someone in a board meeting, or a chairman, is it a man? Imagine someone who is leaving early to pick up their kids. Do you presume that is a woman? And imagine if someone's crying in the office, check in when you hear, is it really a woman? Or if you're thinking about a nurse or a personal assistant or a secretary, is it always a woman? I mean, when I started in the film industry, I can tell you that all my peers, I would say easily 80% of my peers were men when I started off as a PA, because that was a way into the film industry. I was surrounded by guys trying to get into break that bias into the industry. So it was really, really interesting. So I mean, I think what I was also hearing from you today is the inspiration that the gig economy can provide women to get into the workforce, to return to the workforce and find a niche. But I'm also hoping that it inspires them to get behind the technology and go into and create the science and the technology behind it. So go beyond the kind of immediate, I'm excited about getting into e-commerce and selling NFTs and makeup, and go beyond it and to really, really, really say, maybe I can develop a new technology. Maybe I can get into the Ciscos and into the IBMs and into the larger companies and say, how do I want to change what I have, what tools I have? So I'm hoping that we can inspire them and get into the sexy part of it, and then move them into kind of that technical piece. And that's what I think I'm hearing from all of you, is that we have to start somewhere and we have to grow. So I just want to say thank you very much, because I think together with all our thoughts, we can break the bias. And I'm hoping that we can get all of you together and have a wonderful session once we are back in somewhat normal circumstances and we can have an in-person discussion. So once again, thank you very much. And we look forward to having you on the events. Thank you for making AmCham's Women's Week once again a success.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.